everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm doing my April wrap-up. So I read a total of 21 books in April. 6 of them were physical copies, and then the rest were ebooks, and I also reread 4 books. I had a decent month. Like anything, I feel like usually a decent month for me is like 20 books and more. So it was alright, but I definitely did feel very slumpish, and you'll see why in a second. But I didn't really feel like reading, and I wanted to read, but I just like would start reading something and like I would just not want to continue. I don't know. I was just like in the weirdest mood, but I still did read quite a few books, so let's just get into the wrap up. So the first 3 books I read were a trilogy, and they were the Law of Physics trilogy by Penny Reid. I binged the entire trilogy, or the last book was finally released. It was actually released really early on iBooks, like I think a week or 2 before it was live on Amazon. So because it was live on iBooks, I just went ahead and binged them all because I just really wanted to read that trilogy. So the first book is Motion, the second book is Space, and the third book is Time, and I gave them all 4 out of 5 stars. So this is technically a series within a series. You're probably familiar with the Elements of Chemistry, which is the first part in the trilogy, and then you have these 3, the Law of Physics, which is like the second trilogy, and then there'll be a third trilogy out in the future. It's really complicated, but basically you don't really need to read that one before this one, but like I do recommend it, whatever. This is like a new adult romance, and this follows Mona, who is super smart, and she doesn't really have a lot of friends. She's kind of antisocial a little bit, but that's because of her smartness and how like she's kind of alienated herself a little bit from other people because they don't know how to conversate with her really. And then you have Abram, who is a super talented musician, and it's very mysterious, and he is just kind of living his life really. They both end up spending the week together in this house, and it's super cute, it's super heartbreaking, it's super emotional, and just so many feels. I didn't love this trilogy as much as the other trilogy, but I mean, a 4-star, it's still really good. I still really loved it. I love the way that Penny Reid writes her characters, and I love the conversation of feminism and consent, and Penny Reid is just an amazing author, and if you haven't read her books, please do, because she's writing the best stuff, and it's just, I truly love her books. I feel like I've said this before, but Penny Reid writes her characters so differently, and like she's the type of author where you can like literally identify each character because they're so different and unique, and it's just, she's so good at writing different characters, and I just absolutely love it. I highly recommend this trilogy. It is so heartbreaking and just emotional yet cute and sweet, and I just really loved it. I highly recommend. Then I read She's All Mine by Ella Goody, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. It was just like a quick smutty read. It was alright. Then I read Nate by Celia Aaron, and this is book 2 in the Dark Protector duology series. I'm not really sure what it is, but the first book I read, Dark Protector, last month I think, and really enjoyed it, so I went ahead and wanted to read about Nate and his story, and I gave it 3 stars. I liked it, but honestly I wasn't really in the mood to read it, which I think affected how I enjoyed it. I just really wasn't in the mood to read it, which really sucks because I feel like I would have loved it if I was in the proper mood. Yeah, I was just kind of slumpish. But so this follows Nate, who you see in the first book, and he is a hitman slash like mob boss, and years ago he rescued this young girl named Sabrina. He basically became like her guardian, sort of, and like sent her away to like boarding schools and everything. And now she's 18, she's back home, and she wants Nate for herself. And yeah, it's like an age gap, and there's lots of dark romance stuff in it, and it's good, but I probably would have loved it more if I was in the mood for it. Then I read Too Hard by Alexa Riley, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Defy Me by Tara Mafi, which is book 5 in the Shatter Me series, and this I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. And I've noticed that these books in the series like become more and more fast-paced, and like there's more, it's not so like dragged out, which I really appreciate. I don't really want to spoil much, but I loved the ending. I loved the reuniting scenes and all of that. I just really loved that. Super beautiful. I cannot wait to see what happens in the last book. I'm so excited. But yeah, I really, really loved it. Yeah, it's crazy to think that like I'm very picky with YA nowadays, but like the one series that I continue to read when it actually comes out is this series. And I don't even like love this series that much, but like I still keep up with it. I don't know. I think it's just because like there's always spoilers on Twitter a lot for this, so I feel like I have to read it soon. I'm curious to see where the series is gonna go and how it's gonna end. But solid 5th book in the series. Then I read 81 Nights by Georgia Cates. This is book 1 in the Beautiful Illusions duet. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Also really liked this, but I feel like personally I don't understand the point of this book. This is literally what it's blurbed on like Goodreads. While the characters from 81 Nights are entirely new, their storyline is a combination of fresh material and carefully selected themes, scenes, and settings from the Beauty series, the Sin trilogy, Dear Agony, and Indulge. This is intentional. I chose some of my favorite elements from previous releases and injected them into Hutch and Lou's story. Let's call it a story fusion between old favorites and new material. And apparently this title was briefly released as a girlfriend experience under a pen name, which I did not know. Like, as much as I really liked it, it just felt too much like her other books, which I know is the point, but also like, why? Like, I don't know, it's hard for me to complain that it's too much like her other books when that's the point of it, but I'm just like, why couldn't you make something new? It felt too much like Dear Agony, which I loved that book, probably because it's basically the same premise. This follows a woman who is very short on money, and she decides to join this like escort service with this like very prestige company. It's the same company that is used in Dear Agony, by the way. And she gets paired up with this guy who wants the girlfriend experience, but also doesn't really want a real relationship, but also does. He's very confused on like what he wants. And it's them just like kind of falling in love, but also figuring out like what they want and all that jazz, you know, all that drama. So I gave it 4 stars. I did really like it. It does end on a cliffhanger, by the way, sort of. And I didn't realize it was a duology. But luckily the next book comes out this month. So I'm very excited to read that one. And yeah, this was enjoyable. I think if you've read her other books, you'll probably like this. And if you haven't read any of her other books, you might want to check this one out because it is kind of a blend of all of her books. So maybe you'll get a feel for her other books and if you would like them or not. Does that make sense? I don't know. Then I went ahead and reread the entire After series by Anna Todd because obviously the movie was coming out and I was really excited for the movie. I was very curious about it, and I had not read these books since 2015, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna reread the first book and then I can review the movie, and like I can do a comparing like to the book and the movie, you know, I can do my review on it. I was like dead set on rereading the first book anyways. And I reread the first book and I was like, I have to reread the entire series. Like, I just have to. Because I couldn't remember a single thing of what happened in the books. And I just decided that I would reread the entire series, which was the best and worst thing I ever did. So I reread this book. I gave it 5 stars when I first read it, and I gave it 5 stars the second time I read it. Technically, I would give it 4 because I don't think I loved it as much as I read it the first time, but I still really, really loved it. And it's just so weird to me because when I read these books back in 2015, I really loved them. I was pretty obsessed with them. And then it was just like my love kind of faded a little bit, and I slowly started forgetting what happened in the books. You know, all of that, it happens. And then, you know, I still had a love for them, but my love was so detached because it had been so long since I read the books. And with the movie coming out, you know, I was excited, but I barely remembered the book, so I wasn't even sure if I was that excited for the movie. I was really, really scared to reread this book because I was scared that I would hate it now and that I would have changed my opinion on the book. I was scared that other people's opinions would influence how I felt about this book. But I'm so glad I reread it because I am so far gone for this series again, and I'm just like, my love has been reignited for the series, and I'm so happy I reread it. I love the movie. I'll link both of my reviews for the movie down below. I also plan to talk about it in my TV and movie wrap-up, so if you want to have some more additional thoughts on that, that will be up on Monday, I think. But yeah, I mean, these books are not perfect. I don't condone this relationship. I don't support the relationship. I think the character development throughout the series is so beautiful and just so moving. Like, to read about these characters grow and learn from their mistakes and grow as people. It's just one of my favorite things about these books is the character development and the growth, and just I'm so emotional about this series, and I'm so obsessed with it again. I can't explain to you guys how emotional this series is making me all of a sudden. Like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. But I am just so in love with this series again. So I reread the first book, which I gave 5 stars. And then I went ahead and reread After We Collided, which I also gave 5 stars. After We Fell, which I gave 5 stars. Can you believe I read this? I think I read this entire book while I was still going to work. Like, I worked when I read 2 or 3 of these, which, like, I don't even know how I did that because I never read when I go to work. But I read before work, during my break at work, and then after work. And I don't even know how I did this, but gave this 5 stars again. And then the last book, After Ever Happy, which I also gave 5 stars, obviously. So yeah, I'm super happy I reread this series. And I feel like when I did my after movie review, I felt like it was a lot more accurate and detailed because I did read the entire series and I could relate things to, like, where I think the next movie is gonna go, if we get another movie, fingers crossed, and all of that. So I'm just really, really happy I reread the entire series, and I'm so in love with these, and I'm not even sorry about it. If you follow me on Twitter, you know how emo I've been about this series for like the entire month of April. It's so sad. So rereading that entire series definitely put me in a slump. I really couldn't focus on like anything else. All I kept thinking about was the books and the movie and like the movie soundtrack. And I saw the movie like 3 times. So I just really couldn't stop thinking about Tessa and Hardin and all of that. So it definitely put me in like a huge slump, and I struggled to continue my reading month. I think it took me like, I did read a book 4 days after, which I will talk about, but I feel like I would have loved this next book a lot more if I waited, because then I didn't read a book for like 5 days after that either. I was just in a huge slump. I couldn't stop thinking about After, and I was just very emo about it. So that happened. Yeah, and then I read My Life in Shambles by Karina Howley. This is her newest standalone. I gave this 4 stars. I probably honestly would have given it 5 if I would have read it when I was in not a slump and not still thinking about After. I probably would have given this 5 stars. Like, I really, really liked it, but I was still kind of in a slump a little bit. I loved the romance. I loved the characters. It was just so heartbreaking and beautiful, and I really loved it. This follows Valerie, who has recently ended her engagement to her boyfriend, and she had to move out. She also recently lost her job. So for New Year's, I think it is, she decides to take this trip with her sisters and start off the new year just saying yes to new adventures. They go to Ireland, and she meets this pretty famous rugby player, and they quickly hit it off, and he basically asks her to help fake an engagement, and the story kind of takes off from there. I really, really liked it. I just really loved it, and it's one of Karina's best books in my opinion as well. I wish I would have read it when I wasn't so slumpish, because I probably would have loved it a lot more, but still a really, really, really solid romance. Then I read Muse by Alexa Riley, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. And then I read Best I've Ever Had by Abby Glines, which is the 3rd book in the Seabreeze meets Rosemary Beach series, or whatever that series is called. This I gave 2 out of 5 stars. I want to say it was because I was still in a slump, which was true. This just really didn't do it for me. Not to say that I had super high hopes, because the first 2 books weren't that great either, but you guys know I love Abby and I will read anything that she writes, but this was definitely a little disappointing. There's nothing like super wrong with it. I just really didn't like the characters. I really didn't like the romance. I just really couldn't connect with it, and I also feel like there are so many characters in this series that it's kind of hard to keep up with who's who and like whose kid is whose, and like even though I love both the Rosemary Beach series and the Seabreeze series, it's just like there's so many characters. It's hard to like remember who is who. I think my issue with it is like Abby always tries to write bad boys. If you've like read any of the 2 like books in the series, you know that Eli is a nice guy. He's a soft, nice guy. Something happens and then he basically runs away, and he comes back this completely different guy. He's like this bad boy. He has dark secrets now. He has tattoos, all of this stuff. And it's like, I don't know why she felt the need to make him a bad boy. I don't know. I just felt like she totally changed his character for no reason. I did like Ophelia. I thought she was a great character. I did like her. Like, it did have some cute and heartbreaking moments, but it just really didn't do it for me. Then I read The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie, which is a mafia romance. This I gave 4 to 5 stars. Really liked this. This was a solid mafia dark romance. I really liked the characters. I liked the romance. There definitely was a lot of back and forth, which I liked but also kind of found annoying. This follows Elena, who is a mafia princess, and her sister is arranged to marry Maid Man, and like he's another mafia boss. He's super powerful and dark and mysterious, and Elena's very attracted to him, and she kind of begins spending more time with him, and they're kind of forbidden but also not really in a way, because her sister is not really interested in marrying him. So that conflict is not really there. I really enjoyed it. It was super entertaining and definitely a great mafia forbidden romance. I definitely really liked it, and thank you to those who recommended it to me. I know that one of you guys recommended it to me a really long time ago, and then I think a few of you recommended it to me in my mafia recommendation video, so thank you for that. I probably won't read the other book because I don't really care about the other characters. So, and then I read Arranged by R.K. Lily, which is her newest standalone romance novel, and this I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but I definitely had issues with it towards the end specifically. So this follows an arranged marriage, basically. It follows this woman who is very low on money, and her dream is to become a very successful model. So she puts her name in this like private selecting site where like they arrange marriages for like rich bachelors or whatever, and she gets picked to marry this guy who is not really interested in getting married, but his parents kind of arrange it, and she gets like schooled in how to like properly behave and like all of these very interesting things. They get married. She immediately rises to fame. She's booking all these jobs, but obviously her and her husband don't have a real relationship. They're not really in love. She wants to try to make it work, but he doesn't. It's about them slowly falling in love, but there's drama that happens literally towards the end, which I absolutely hate. And it has one of my least favorite tropes in the entire world. And so I just wasn't really a fan of the ending. It just felt like there was so much unnecessary drama towards the end. And then the last, like, honestly, like maybe couple of chapters, there was a lot of like telling but not showing. So it just felt like I couldn't connect with them dealing through this issue and like growing. I just like couldn't see it because it wasn't like I could feel them fixing it. Does that make sense? It probably doesn't. It was all right. Not my favorite by this author, but I still did enjoy it. So, and then I started a new series, and that is the Camorra Chronicles by Cora Riley, which is a spin-off of the Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles. So this is a spin-off. So I read the first book, Twisted Loyalties, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not my favorite by Cora Riley, but I still did like it. This follows Fabiano, who is like Arya's little brother. So now he's all grown up. This is his story. This basically kind of follows the timeline of Bound by Love / like kind of what happens after or like during that book as well. Like it's kind of weird. I don't know. I read the entire Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles series first, and then I'm reading this series right now. Anyways, I give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked it, but I wasn't a huge fan of either of the characters. I liked them. I liked the mafia element. I loved the whole like how tight the Camorra group is and like the whole family. I really liked it. So this book was all right, but not my favorite by Cora Riley and not my favorite in the series. And then I read Twisted Emotions, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this one. I loved the characters. I loved the romance and just the whole way the book was done. I really, really loved it. And this follows Nino's story, and I just really loved it. It was super good and just fabulous. And then I read the third book, which is Twisted Pride, which follows Remo, and I also loved this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was so good and I just really loved it. My only issue is definitely like what happens in the last like chunk before the end. Basically what happens with Serafina's family, I didn't love, and I wish it would have been different, but regardless, I still really enjoyed this. It was really, really good. I loved Remo. I love this series. It's so good. I cannot wait for the next book, and I'm so happy I caught up on this series. Thank you for reminding me to catch up on this series because some of you did. I'm so glad I finally caught up, and I'm glad I finally started it, and now I'm like all caught up and I can like read them whenever they come out. I'm just really excited, and this is again such a solid mafia romance series. I love the Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles series, obviously. But if you want a series that has more of an actual plot and like that's a little bit darker, like I do recommend this one. But I still really love both of these series. So, and then the last book that I read in April was Chasing Red by Isabel Ronan. And this I gave 3 to 5 stars. I liked it. I probably will pick up the second book just because I do want to know what's going to happen. And I like how it's only a duology, so I'm probably going to pick up the second book. This is a new adult romance set in college, and this follows Caleb, who one night goes to this like club or this party, and he sees this woman in this red dress, and he's like immediately drawn to her, and he kind of saves her that night, and she doesn't really have anywhere to stay, so he offers her to live at his place with him. And so they slowly kind of start this friendship, but also are like falling in love. And she has like this dark past that she's like very wary of men. It's cute, but I feel like I've definitely read so many stories like this before, but I did enjoy it enough to want to pick up the second book. So alright, so those were all 15 books that I read in April. Let me know how many books you guys read last month and which one was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.